Mass Effect 3, the finale of the trilogy of the epic space opera we know as Mass Effect, came out over 10 years ago. Quite a number to think about. All of us were younger, and I'm sure we all had high hopes for the franchise. The ending was somewhat less than satisfying, for me as well as for other people. I'm sure you in the audience are no exception in this regard. And what was initially claimed is that they would do a hard reboot of sorts, and that's what they did with Mass Effect Andromeda, which after a lot of patches, a lot of polishing, turned out to be an okay-ish game, but by no means anything to write home about. And we have received bits and pieces, tidbits of news since then about another Mass Effect project that they're working on. In fact, in a trailer related to the project, they show Liara. Somewhat older, of course. She is an Asari that can live quite some time. And it gives us this idea that the next Mass Effect installment will be in the future, but not in the Andromeda Galaxy, presumably in the Milky Way. It will be in the same part of the universe that the original Mass Effect trilogy plays in. This leaves us in a bit of a dilemma, because any way you slice it, at least in theory, this leaves us with the simple fact that the Mass Effect franchise going forward needs to somehow be attached to the original trilogy. Now, they could do it in a certain way where it's unattached. That would involve a very old Liara, and the events of the War of the Reapers were just largely forgotten, and it just isn't relevant anymore. And if I were a betting man, I would say, sure, that's what they're going to do. Otherwise, they have to attach themselves to a particular ending, a canon ending, if you will. Now here's a little idea I have. Because typically, most of these games revolve around some grand threat narrative. Some godlike force that you're meant to defeat, or at the very least oppose. I wouldn't mind some kind of Mass Effect game set in the future with smaller stakes. Maybe you don't need to be the equivalent of Commander Shepard. Maybe you can just be somebody more local and have things on a smaller scale. And this Mass Effect will be released after Dragon Age Dreadwolf. So whether or not Mass Effect is successful, at least in terms of its reception, will in part hinge on the success, in my opinion at least, of Dragon Age Dreadwolf. And once again, we face similar issues with respect to Mass Effect as we do with Dragon Age. Most of the people who were working on Dragon Age originally have left. The people who are working on Mass Effect now, presumably, are not the original people. And that doesn't mean it's necessarily going to be bad, but it certainly doesn't inspire confidence. So we have a relatively firm sense of what Dragon Age Dreadwolf is going to be about, without offering spoilers. We have no idea what Mass Effect, whatever it's called in the future, is going to be about. So what would your preference be? Would you want it to somehow be tied to the Reaper saga? Or would you prefer them to do a hard reboot and pretend it never happened? Or make it so distant as to be irrelevant? Do let me know in the comments section. Very interested to hear your opinions. And as always, thank you for tuning in. Please leave a like, share, comment, subscribe, as it really helps out the channel. And I'll check you out next time. Take care.